Next up, I know you said you were going to talk about your top 10 wide receivers going into 2024. Yes, I am. I'm going to do that video very soon, actually. But can you talk about some of your favorite freshmen to monitor going into this year and who could be ones that find their way into All-American status? Tom in Auburn. Tom, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I'm not sure you're going to see that many wide receivers make it to the All-American status. First team, at least. And there's a reason for that. Number one, you just look at the guys who are there. I mean, seriously, Luther Burden, T-Mac comes back. Evan Stewart's going to be, I think, a human highlight reel working with Dylan Gabriel. You have Tez Johnson. You have Trey Harris. You have Emeka Ibuka. It's hard to say that one of them's going to take over, but it's not impossible. You got to start with Jeremiah Smith. He's going on into wide receiver U. And yes, I do believe that everyone has a case. Clemson at one point, LSU at one point, Alabama had a case at one point for wide receiver U. But it's Ohio State right now. They're being developed like it's literally a factory line to the NFL. One wide receiver, two wide receivers, even the fifth string wide receivers find their way to a roster. And so Jeremiah Smith, the number one overall recruit of 2023, comes on in. He's already balled out. He was an early enrollee, so he's working with Brian Hartline, and he's orchestrating this offense led by Chip Kelly. There's a need for a wide receiver too, and I do think that between him and Carnell Tate, one of them is going to take over that role. So the other one's going to be wide receiver 3, opposite of Emeka Ibuka. But what if, again, Will Howard or maybe it's Julian Sang or whoever ends up getting the starting job long-term just says, no, I'm going to go with Jeremiah Smith because if he's the big-size wide receiver, he's an elite route runner, he's great after the catch, he has an incredible radius throughout all of college football, he may end up being just what Amari Cooper was back in 2012. For those of you that don't know, Amari Cooper, when he went to Alabama, he immediately flourished the second that he arrived with A.J. McCarron. Veteran coach, veteran quarterback, young wide receiver that just found his stride. And immediately they were the national champion favorites. They lost one game. They beat Notre Dame, and they absolutely dog-smoked them down in Miami. That might be what you have with Jeremiah Smith. Again, this is a team that feels like they have to go for it all this year because of what's returning. I would be very shocked if Jeremiah Smith is not leading the charge when it comes to that. And that's why he was the number one wide receiver. Ryan Williams at Alabama, they lose everybody. You know, Jermaine Burton's gone. You also lose Isaiah Bond at Texas. I do think that Jeremy Bernard is going to be a really good player. I really do like what he brings to the table. I think that he is a fluid route runner, and he's going to make a name for himself in the SEC. But Ryan Williams is a 5-star plus wide receiver according to On3. What that plus means is that there are elite players, and then there's dudes like this guy. And that's what I think is going to be a really big standout for him. He's fitting into this Kalen DeBoer offense that last year saw 2 wide receivers go for over 1,000 yards, and Jalen McMillan nearly got to 1,000 as well. So you're talking about a team that knows how to throw the football. You have that vertical speed downfield. What do we know about Jalen Milroe? He's got great vertical adaptability. He is not afraid to sling it like Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. He's got the inertia to be able to uncork it 40 yards for a bomb. And as long as Ryan Williams is in the right place at the right time, it's hard to imagine he won't be a factor. Now, he won't be the only wide receiver in Tuscaloosa, but I do think that he will be a pretty prominent one. TJ Moore, TJ Moore for Clemson's another one that I think you have to be paying attention to. They need somebody to step up. There's 2 wide receivers that were both 4-stars coming out of this draft. TJ Moore was one. You also had, if I'm not mistaken, Brian Westco as the other. One was a 5-star, one was a 4-star by 24/7 Sports. I think TJ Moore is probably the more prominent one. He's 6'1". He's got that good speed. You need somebody to step up for Cade Klubnik. That's just the bottom line. And you look at what Clemson could be, they still have high hopes that they're going to be in the playoff. They still think that they could be a roster that's filled with the upside and potential. And if you get these two to really play against each other, where you get a guy like Wesco, 6'2", you get a guy like Moore, 6'3", 6'3", number 4 wide receiver in the country, you might be able to see that counteraction with it. And the big thing is for me, when you see these two play together, how quickly can they gel throughout fall camp? Because of the second that these two arrive on campus, you probably aren't trying to redshirt them. You're probably trying to get them out on the field because they may already be the best wide receivers that are already on campus, which leads us to the next point, Cam Coleman. I kind of mentioned him earlier in here. Cam Coleman walked on in January to Auburn, and everyone already knew, crap, that guy's already elite. Because he was. He was the best wide receiver in the country, not named Jeremiah Smith. He's a great route runner. He's good size, exceptional fluidity in space. He makes people look stupid when they're trying to tackle him. And this is a kid that's still growing into his body, number one. And he also is still learning how to, I think, run routes at a high-end level. So there is so much room for growth. And he already is the best wide receiver on campus. A name that's not getting mentioned enough, though, that I want to bring up is his teammate, Perry Thompson. 6'4", coming out of Foley, Alabama, 5th number overall player in the state. Number 8 wide receiver, which just shows you how good the wide receivers are in this class. He's got the size, 210 pounds. He can just truck people. Like, I remember watching some highlights of him not too long ago, and I was just saying, who is this number 1? Oh, Una, because if there's one way to stop him, you got to meet him head on, and if you miss, it is a collision course to a one-way shot to go into the bench. That's what you got with Perry Thompson. And so these two could end up being a reason why Auburn is trending in the right direction. 2 more for you really fast. I love the addition of Micah Hudson going to Texas Tech. This is a 5-star caliber wide receiver out of Temple, Texas. 6 foot, 190 pounds. Brandon Morton is going to need at number 1 go-to target. And Jody McGuire knows talent in the state. Like, if you talk to anybody throughout all of college football and they go, hey, who understands high school recruits better than anybody here? Oh, it's Jody McGuire. And now he's using that NIL collective in Lubbock to start building a roster. They recently renovated the stadium at AT&T Jones. They also still have, I think, a very good overall sense of where this team is. They're not trying to overexpand their horizons, but this is a guy that you want holding on hope for the very long term. Good size, good fluidity. I think that he brings a lot of upside in terms of what you're going to bring to this offense in terms of the passing attack. And I really do think that when you look at what the overall style that they want to run, it's going to be a little bit more spread, in my opinion. Zach Kitley is a really, really good coordinator. And I think that having another year working with Brandon Morton, where he is the full-time starter, there's no more questions of, do we turn to Tyler Shuck? Is Tyler Shuck going to be healthy for the full year? No, we got our guy. I think that this is where you see Micah Hudson be that X factor that starts to come into his own. I don't know if he'll be at the same level as Jeremiah Smith, but I do think he will be the best wide receiver in the Big 12 of all the incoming freshmen. Last one for you, Mike Matthews. I've talked about Mike Matthews a few times on this program. The thing that I love about him is that there is so much intrigue to his role. He's got the speed. He's got the hands. He's got the fluidity. He doesn't have the size. But when you have everything else, and you're already making an impact at an SEC school, the way that Cam Coleman is, the way that Ryan Williams is, the way that other players are, but you're kind of flying under the radar. You may end up having one job this year. And it may just be, hey, go deep every other 6 plays and find a way to be Nico Iamaleava's go-to target. Like, that might be it. And he may only have like 30 catches for like 810 yards, and they're all like 22.5 yards down the field. But if you can start building that type of relationship very early on in camp, that's just medicine and fuel for 2025. Like, Mike Matthews is here past 2024. He's a guy that I am putting all my chips in for next season. I really like him as an overall player. I just don't know if he's going to have the same type of role with Squirrel White there, with McCoy there, Chris Browser coming on in, Holden Stales from Notre Dame being the tight end. There's a lot of intrigue for this team. I do think, though, when you look right now, he is going to be a name that we know about in the SEC in the not-so-distant future. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. That's awesome. Thank you so much. But before you leave, make sure that you hit subscribe. And if you want to check out any of our other great work, make sure you click on one of the videos here. Am I pointing at the right spot? I'm not entirely sure. I'm really not.